House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day that you have graciously given. May we rejoice and be glad in it, and may you be glorified in our use of it. Father, on this day we also want to remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our country and communities. May we remember them, honor them, and pray and support their families. Father, would you please give to us your grace today? Specifically, I pray for these men and women gathered here who serve our state. Their task is not easy, and their responsibilities are not small. By your grace, would you please grant them wisdom and discernment as they navigate through the issues of the day? As they labor over critical and pressing matters, may you grant to them a common goal and a productive unity. And would we, as residents in their counties and towns, pray for them and seek to encourage them? We are thankful for them, Father, and desire your very best for them. Father, it is our privilege to be American citizens. It is a great blessing to live in a land of freedom and individual responsibility. Thank you for giving to us all that we have. And as we live and work together from different experiences, ethnicities, beliefs, and creeds, may we know you and all that you will for us. This life and our days are fleeting, so by your grace, lead us to your truth. As Catherine Lee Bates penned, America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Amen.
The pastor for today is, or the chaplain for today, is Pastor Sam Brown, Chisago Lakes Baptist Church, Chisago City, Minnesota. Members, please continue standing while the Minnesota Law Enforcement Memorial Association Honor Guard presents our colors. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Support. Hold. Ready? Please. Follow. Out.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 88th Session, 2014, 104th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Wednesday, May 14, 2014.
If there's no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 3383 and 3384.
First reading, House Files 3383 and 3384. Messages from the Senate.
Messages from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, this is the Metsa motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendment to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 3169, an act relating to state government. Metsa moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 3169 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is essentially what we're accepting is some ex parte language from the Senate. Again, this was the House file that came through in regard to the constitutional amendment on pay, and we will be accepting the Senate language today, or I will be as the author, and would encourage a green vote on that. And overall, again, to recap this bill, it essentially creates a council that will take legislative pay and give away our right as legislators through our constitutional right as legislators to have that pay. So with that, I would encourage a green vote, and Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to refuse to concur with the Conference Committee report. As I've mentioned before, this bill in essence will result in a legislative pay increase for legislators. Historically, when you look at states that have gone to a commission that decides the fate of legislator salaries, they have all increased, especially on their first initial year. And I think that this is a burden to the taxpayers of Minnesota in the increase that they're going to have. And it limits our ability as a legislative body when times are tough and we're facing a budget deficit from allowing us to actually make the reduction in our legislative pay. And I would ask for a green vote to refuse to concur. Thank you.
Representative Anderson, this is a concurrence to a Senate amendment, not a conference committee. So you need to let me know how many conference committee members you would like on it, 3 or 5. This isn't a conference report. This is just coming back from the Senate.
Oh, my apologies, Mr. Speaker. I'll withdraw my motion then.
You can move to not concur and appoint a conference committee if you want. I mean, it's up to you. It's okay.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are on the motion to concur in the Senate, or to Senate amendments. Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Representative Anderson, I would just like to point out that part of your concerns, we can as legislators take up to the amount appropriated, and there is no law that would prohibit us from taking less pay individually as we so choose. And with that, members, I would like to encourage a green vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the motion. The clerk can close the roll. There being 68 ayes and 60 nays, the motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by Senate.
Third reading, House File 3169, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Representative?
Mr. Speaker, again, members, I'd encourage a red vote. What we are doing here is saying that we are putting increases for legislators on automatic pilot. It limits our ability as a legislative body to cut our pay when times are tough in particular. And I think this is a poorly thought out bill, and I would ask for you to vote red.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the... Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If Representative Metsa would yield to a question, please.
If we keep it just a little quiet. Representative Metsa will yield. Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Metsa, I had the opportunity to listen to some of the debate in the other chamber, and one of the things that came to mind for me when they were doing the ex parte language that's now part of this constitutional amendment and bill, is there anything in statute or anything in your bill that prevents the members who would be part of this council from making campaign contributions to members of this body or the Senate?
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Fabian, no, there isn't, to my knowledge.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Representative Metsa, then, is it my understanding that members of this commission who are going to be determining compensation for members of the House and the Senate and so forth will be able to make campaign contributions to members of the House and the Senate? Is that correct?
Representative Metsa.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Representative Fabian, yes, that is correct, and I don't think there are, to my knowledge anyway, any other exclusions on any other commissions that we appoint in our work here at the Capitol that would exclude people from donating to a candidate or political ideology of their choice.
Representative Krisha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if Representative Metsa would yield for one question.
He will. Representative Krisha.
Representative Metsa, can any of these members serve on any state agencies or boards that would benefit from the work that we do down here as legislators?
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear the end there.
Representative Krisha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would any of the members of this committee, would they be able to serve on any boards or committees that would benefit from the legislative work that is done down here by the legislators that they ultimately will be deciding their pay on?
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, all the members of the committee would be potential. I guess yes would be potentially the answer to your question with that. So,
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Representative Metsa, just to clarify, so these individuals could be serving on any commission or board that would potentially be benefiting from state funding, whether that's a grant through deed or whether that's an allocation through what other agency that we have here in the state. They could be serving on that board while also serving on this commission. Is that correct?
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Anderson, yes, that would be correct. And as of right now, I recall there being an amendment up that was withdrawn from your side of the aisle, of which I had talked to the author and agreed to accept the amendment last week.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Representative Metsa, as you know, you can offer that amendment at any time. These are some of the concerns and issues that have been raised from the get-go of when you put this forward. So now we're having people that are going to be serving on boards and commissions that are benefiting from state funding They're the ones that are going to be responsible for setting our legislative pay? Well, shoot, that's an easy thing for them to figure out. If they want to get funding for their project or for their board or their commission that they're serving on, and they're serving on the commission that is setting the legislative pay for legislators, I don't know what a conflict of interest is, but that sure seems like one, don't you think? This is ripe with serious problems. And now we're having these folks making these decisions. You can't tell me there isn't going to be a conflict of interest. Here we're going to be patting the pocket of legislators at the expense of taxpayers, and we will have nothing to say about it. This is a wrong bill. Vote no.
Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Again, this is the pay raise for Democrats in the legislature. The title of this constitutional amendment that's in this bill is misleading. This will ultimately end up in a pay raise for legislators. It's a bad bill. The constitutional amendment in the underlying bill is also bad. This is your last opportunity. Vote no.
Representative Metsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is about letting the people decide and removing a conflict of interest from the legislature. We're here on a part-time basis for a few months out of the year and should not be debating extensively issues like pay when there are a lot more important issues to Minnesotans. This council effectively removes that conflict of interest and allows us to get on with the business of the state. Members, I'd urge a green vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill as amended by Senate. The clerk will close the roll. There being 68 ayes and 62 nays, the bill is passed as amended by Senate and its title agreed to. We're on the calendar for the day. The first file on the calendar for the day is Senate File 2555. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 2555, an act relating to deposits and investment of public funds.
Nelson. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if we could, I have an amendment to put the House language in the bill. If we could take that up first, then I'll describe the bill.
There is a DEA amendment. The clerk will report that amendment.
Nelson moving to amend Senate File 2255 as introduced as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert the language of House File 2319, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 2319.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is a simple little bill, and I know that's deft to say that, but it's about allowing Net Council to have the additional short-term investments to take care of their help with their cash management. Currently, in law, the cities over 200,000 or the counties that they are in have this ability to use these there are like 4 additional ways of dealing with short-term cash. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin, Ramsey County are the four groups that are governmental entities that currently have this authority. The Met Council encompasses both of those counties and both of those cities, and so they're just asking to have this same additional short-term, using additional vehicles for their short-term cash. And then we're talking between 45 and 120 days that this money would be in these accounts. So, members, that's what the bill does. I'll stand for, I guess there's some other amendments, and I'll stand for questions.
Any discussions to that? There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Albright moving to amend Senate File 2255 as amended as follows. The amendment is coded 1294.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The amendment before you takes care of some of the concerns for local control as well as debt service. Again, as Representative Nelson said, this is just a simple little amendment, and I would ask for a green vote. Thank you.
Discussion. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Runbeck moving to amend the Albright amendment to Senate File 2255 as follows. The amendment is coded 1300.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, the amendment I am bringing today is brought under the belief that it's time for a reset on the Met Council. It's time to hit that reset button. This is not, we heard yesterday that the Met Council is something that happened with Republican support, has been a benign agency that has done many good things for the Twin Cities area. But today it's different. The Met Council is emerging into a true central planning organization based on its Thrive 2040 plan. It's a different Met Council than the one we knew, which had been really devoted to some important regional infrastructure issues regarding sewer, water, transit, and so on. Very basic public infrastructure, public works. But the new Met Council is going to be bent on reshaping our area and becoming a total social engineering organization with tremendous amounts of power. And remember that what this organization is has plenty of tax authority, plenty of eminent domain authority, and plenty of regulatory authority. So it is a powerful organization, and it's beginning to feel its oats, and it's deciding that we're going to be looking at our future in this area based on things having to do with sustainability, with equity, with livability, prosperity, and stewardship. So this is not our father's Met Council. We are heading down a path where housing prices are going to increase dramatically and where congestion will only go in the direction of increasing. This is not what our metro area needs. This is not about growth that will be attracting folks. This is something we need to reject and we need to rethink. So that's the purpose of my amendment, and I urge you to support it. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Nelson.
Well, members, I rise to oppose this amendment. I mean, this bill is all about cash management, trying to help the Met Council be able to manage the money they have better, to have it there, get better returns so we can use less taxpayer dollars for them, so they can use their money more efficiently and making government more efficiently. The Runbeck Amendment eliminates the Met Council, eliminates, and as she stated, talk about increased congestion, increased lack of planning. We're going to have more of that if we get rid of the Met Council, because that's what the Met Council does in the metropolitan area. It's the planning commission that goes across all 7 counties in the metropolitan area. But again, this greatly expands the bill, because we're just talking about one part of what they do, and by doing this, we're eliminating it altogether. I would vote no, because we're greatly expanding the bill.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just disagree with one thing that, several things that Representative Nelson said, but one of them was that he said that if the Met Council goes away, that we're going to have more problems with congestion. Maybe like the Central Corridor that's going to take more than an hour to go 11 miles. Maybe we'll get more congestion like that, Representative Nelson. We managed to do that with the help of the Met Council. That's not very efficient.
Representative Nelson.
I'd like a roll call on this.
Representative Nelson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion on the Runbeck amendment to the Albright amendment. The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise to oppose this amendment as well. Sorry, Representative Runbeck, and here's the reasons. Wright County, thank you, Madam Speaker. Wright County is not part of the 7-county metropolitan area, thanks be to God, and because of that we have seen great economic development and growth in our Wright County. Many homes, many businesses, great education, property taxes are low, and that's why they moved to Wright County, because of all those great things that Wright County has, and we're not beholden or chained or bonded by the Metropolitan Council. So Representative Runbeck, I'm afraid I'm going to vote against this because Wright County has prospered because we're not under the bondage of the Metropolitan Council and all their irresponsible decisions that stifle businesses and stifle families and stifle and take away tax dollars from hardworking Minnesotans. So I urge a no vote.
Any further discussion on the Runbeck A14-1300 amendment? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 74 nays, the amendment to the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Runbeck moving to amend the Albright amendment as follows. The amendment is coded 1302.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mentioned in the previous, under the previous amendment comments that the Met Council has eminent domain authority, and I think the troublesome fact here is that we've got a council that has so much power and is truly unelected. And when it comes to such important values as property and property rights, that power cannot be vested in an unelected body. And so my amendment would say that they cannot use eminent domain for that project. So please urge your support. Thank you.
Representative Nelson.
I thought you said Halverson. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I again urge you to vote no on this amendment. Part of the Met Council's duties is planning for the whole metropolitan area, and part of that planning and what they do is they provide our sewer services, and one of the things that they use the eminent domain for is routing these sewer lines. If they didn't have this ability, some of our outlying communities that want to develop and want to build more factories to provide more jobs, build more housing, to provide places for people to live and grow as a community, they wouldn't be able to do because they wouldn't be able to connect to the sewer lines, because you wouldn't be able to move them from here to there if you didn't have this power of eminent domain. So members, I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Further discussion on the Runbeck amendment. Representative Runbeck.
Madam Chair, I would like to request a roll call.
Representative Runbeck requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Any further discussion? The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 74 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Scott moving to amend the Albright amendment as follows. The amendment is coded 1309.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this amendment, I know it keeps coming back, but we've talked here on the floor about the fact that several times that the Met Council has taxing authority, they have eminent domain authority, they have all kinds of authority, and it keeps leaching out more and more, especially with this new bill that Representative Nelson has brought to us. And so at the very least, we should expect them to be elected. So folks, that's what this amendment does, is requires that the Met Council members be elected. Keep in mind that, we're expanding their authority today with this bill. And did you know that they invest almost $700 million? $700 million that the Met Council invests, folks. And they have no elected, they're not elected, they're not accountable to anyone. 700 million taxpayer dollars that they're dealing with. Please vote yes.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I would urge a no vote on this amendment. This greatly expands what the scope of this bill is. This bill is about allowing them to do some additional short-term borrowing or short-term investments, and so that they can better manage their cash that they have. And this goes way beyond that. This is a large policy discussion that should be had in committee, should go through the process instead of doing it here on the floor. So please vote no on the amendment.
The member from Anoka, Representative Abler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And as the member whose predecessor actually formed the Met Council, Charlie Weaver Sr., I've had an interesting track record of trying to enjoy his legacy and endure the pain that the Met Council causes a lot of our cities and counties. And actually, I don't support the amendment, but I wanted just to comment. I think the Met Council is an agency that had merit at the time it was created, but it's gone way out of control. They think they're equal to us. We try to do stuff. They come to our cities. They say, you're doing this, and we try to pass a law, and you can't do that, and the governor weighs in. And so if you're not careful on this Met Council thing, you won't need a legislature to do any planning in the Metro, because they're going to do all of it for us. We'll have no control over who gets the benefit of a MUSA line and who doesn't. And if you have property outlying and just out past the MUSA line, then it's worth nothing. If you get to have sewer to it, then it's worth something. And all the discussion about groundwater and White Bear Lake and all the recharge business, it's out of our hands. And so I'm not sure that electing it's the right way, but I think it should be an agency, or it should be made of elected officials, but it shouldn't be all the way independent. So members, this is one of my last days to be on the floor, so this is all in your lap. I've been part of many efforts to try to change it. We have been incapable of changing it because we don't agree on a way it should go, and the governor always weighs in, well, we can't do that. So Representative Nelson, good luck with your work, and I bet your bill passes today. I don't support this amendment, but I hope that as this goes forward that we can have a thoughtful approach about how shall we manage our 7-county metro area, soon to become 9, soon to become 14, and Representative Gruenhagen soon to accomplish you one of these days. So I want to caution you. Thank you, members.
Representative Nelson.
Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, is there a roll call on this?
No.
A roll call has not been requested.
I request a roll call.
Representative Nelson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion to the Scott amendment. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 74 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. We are on the Albright amendment. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, again, just to clarify, the amendment that I've put forth, the purpose for which this is an accountability and transparency motive. If you look at the bottom of page 2 on lines 4.22 through the top of page 5 on 5.2, the purpose is pretty clear. All we're looking for is a report that would provide for evidence of gain and loss, as well as the purchase and shares that the Met Council has gone over and above the excess collateral to make account for to us in terms of activities. Very straightforward. It's just for them to make sure that they are providing evidence that they're being accountable under their legal compliance audit, which is part and parcel to every one of these debt issues. We'll probably get into that at third reading, and so I would urge a green vote. Thank you, members.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I again rise to oppose this amendment. Members, we already do this. I mean, we have a legislative commission on metropolitan government that 14 members in the legislature serve on, including Representative Scott and Representative Runbeck, and they already do this. They should be doing this. Our state auditor looks at what they spend and is part of what they do, and this is already being done. So this is redundant, and in the spirit of the unsession that we have here, not trying to put in more redundancy in our legislature, I urge a no vote, and I request a roll call.
Representative Nelson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would Representative Nelson yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Nelson, how many times in the last 2 years has the Legislative Committee on the Metropolitan Governance Council met?
Representative Nelson.
Madam Speaker and Representative Scott, I do not know, but they're at the call of the chair, and so that's up to the chair of that committee or that commission.
Representative Scott.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know about the rest of you, but meeting once every 2 years, in my opinion, is not adequate, but that's exactly what it's been under Democrat control. That's not putting much accountability over the Met Council. In addition to that, it's a commission, not a committee. It really doesn't have any authority. And here we are granting more authority to them today to go to the craps table with the taxpayer's dollar and gamble on futures and those sorts of things. So, folks, I encourage a green vote on the Albright amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the Albright amendment. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 60 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 2255 as amended.
Third reading. As amended. Discussion. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And would Representative Nelson rise for a few questions?
He will. Representative Albright.
Representative Nelson, I rise for 3 points of concern in the bill, and I'll enumerate those in straightforward fashion. We won't take too long. My first question is with regard to the capabilities of the organizations that would be assisting in the reinvestment of the excess. And as I mentioned, every time that this happens, they have to comply with a compliance manual, a checklist, if you will, And in there, it does describe Section 118A.05 with regard to broker-dealers as well as financial institutions. I'm just wondering if you're comfortable with all the entities that might be available to these, if you could describe for us how you would envision that happening.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Albrecht, while I may not be as knowledgeable about this area as you are, I understand. I am comfortable with what they're doing, what they'd be able to do. Again, they're going to have policies in place before they can do this. Similar policies to what the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul have. These are for short-term investment of money that they have excess cash. Instead of letting it sit in a corner someplace and not collect any interest, this is a way that they can make some money on that money, so that and be able to have that ready or available when they need it. And that's what this bill does, and that's all that it's doing.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Nelson, on the top of page 5, in the application section 8, it delineates several counties that are added to and applicable to language earlier in the bill. And I'm just wondering, from the standpoint of why is the Met Council desiring of becoming involved in those counties' excess collateral, if he would yield?
Representative Nelson.
Well, Madam Speaker and Representative Albright, those are the counties that are included in the Met Council, so that's why that language is there. It's the application of what the Met Council already does. That they have authority over the money that they get from within those counties, so that's why that language is included in the bill.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Nelson, if you would continue to yield. In the bill, it talks about excess collateral with regard to the investments that are used. Can you describe what that excess collateral, in terms of the threshold it is within the bill, if you would yield?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's the same as it would be applied to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Hennepin and Ramsey County.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In clarification, Representative Nelson, that's 10% over the assigned collateral that is bonded for. So, yes, you're correct. Representative Nelson, if you would continue to yield. For what purposes other than enhanced investments would the Met Council want to withdraw the excess collateral from these counties?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Albright, I do not believe that they're going to be taking it from those counties. They're going to be dealing with the money they have. This is for them to invest the money that they have in the Met Council and to be able to manage their cash. It's not managing the cash of the other counties. It's managing the cash that the Met Council has. And the reason that those are stated is because that's the area that the Met Council includes.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Nelson, the Met Council, as we've all said, is an unwieldy organization, and it seems to be very much on the want for additional power. What constraints does your bill put over Met Council in terms of accountability to the folks that are looking for these funds in the future years?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Albright, they're accountable to us. We have legislative oversight over them. We have that through the commission that I referenced earlier, and we have that because they report back to us every year. They report back to us on their budget. They are accountable to us, and we are the ones providing that oversight.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think that proves the point of why we offer the amendments and the amendments to amendments, Madam Speaker. And as Representative Scott said, we have not yet seen a report. The commission that Representative Scott and others serve on has not met, has not really had that enforcement action. And so inasmuch as that we've asked for roll calls on these, asking for transparency and accountability for our own members, the amendment that I offered earlier was just exactly that. It was to offer accountability to the Met Council for the very same reason that we ask of that of ourselves. So with that, I would urge a green vote.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. We've gotten a little further afield from the original bill, but since there has been a discussion about the Legislative Commission on Metropolitan Governance, I did want to weigh in on a couple of those things. First of all, the Met Council is an important agency. It does very essential work for our region, but some good points have been raised about accountability. And on the issue of the Legislative Commission on Metropolitan Governance, it did meet late last year for one of its main intended purposes, which is to go over the budget for the coming year of the Metropolitan Council. I agree that it probably should meet more than once a year to do more than just go over the budget. Currently, the Senate has the gavel, and I think there is a role and a need for this commission to meet to get at some of the very issues that Representative Scott was talking about in her amendment. I think there is an interest on both sides of the aisle to really look at Metropolitan Council governance and update it, whether it's direct election, whether it's a hybrid of existing elected officials or appointees. There are a number of models that other regional planning organizations around the country utilize. That's an important discussion, and I think there's bipartisan interest in that. And I will encourage the Senate to have the senator who holds the gavel to have a discussion about that in the interim. That's really important, and I think that is a good point that was raised by Representative Scott. But in terms of this commission and its powers, it's simple oversight that we have. It's an important commission that should continue, and the commission did meet and do its most essential work late last year. It ought to meet potentially to look at some governance issues later on this year in the summer and fall, and I will encourage that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion to the bill. The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Hornstein. And I agree with you. It is disappointing that we don't know who will hold the gavel, and if the wrong person holds the gavel, apparently you don't meet and you have flexibility in the oversight. That's why I was disappointed we didn't take a amendment which actually would have forced and reassured the citizens of this state that there would be timely review. But I was wondering if the chief author would stand for our 3 questions.
He will. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Nelson, what reports have you received from this commission that I guess did meet once this session?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Quam, the Met Council gave a report in front of the Government Operations Committee. I believe they gave a report on the transit piece in front of Representative Hornstein's committee. As far as the commission goes, I don't remember seeing a report.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think that was the point of wanting the amendment, that, you know, frankly, you would be assured of getting a report, which apparently, because the gavels rotated to someone that didn't think we needed to have the meetings that maybe we needed for oversight, you didn't receive a report from them. I'm just wondering what sort of reports, what sort of information, if he would yield for the next question.
He will yield. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what sort of reports and et cetera from the counties, the cities that have this authority already and have been exercising this investment, what kind of reports and analysis of the successes or, you know, possible failures have you received and caused you to draft this piece of legislation?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Qualm, I have not seen a report from the the city of Minneapolis or St. Paul or Hennepin or Ramsey County. They don't report to us on that. They report in their budget, and we're part of their budget process, but that doesn't come back to us. And the report that was in the amendment did not cover them. It just covered the Metropolitan Council. So we wouldn't have gotten those reports anyway if that amendment had gone on.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, if I'm understanding correctly, we have entities out there with this authority, and it's a good idea, or they're requesting to add the authority to another entity, but we don't have the oversight to generate the reports to be able to, on this floor, to actually look at what are the results and why we should expand it. I mean, if this is really, really good, then, we should look at expanding it, maybe other entities, port authorities, etc., or other counties. But I guess a little disappointed that I have to make my vote without having, the data, the historic information, and the reports and accountability that would help me maybe make a better informed decision. With the absence of the reports, I have another question, if he would yield.
He will yield. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative, with the absence of the reports, do you have from conversations or any information of whether they've ever had a loss with any of their investments, individual investments? Any information of there's a downside? Because I know frequently when I'm called by investment people that they give all this rosy upside, but somebody has to lose money for other people to make money, maybe. I've heard that once or twice. So have there ever had any information to you about the possible downside and what the limits to the downside of any losses might be?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Quam, you're correct that in any investment that they'd make, including putting money in the bank, there's the possibility of losing money, and that's part of the reason for doing this is to try and manage their short-term cash better. But Representative Quam and members, the cities that we've referenced here, the two counties we've referenced here, are report to the state auditor, and the state auditor monitors them to make sure that they're doing things properly.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative. And I appreciate that. I might have missed the auditor's reports that went into the investment ups and downs, from this. Frankly, I'm open to being creative. I'm open to, intelligently investing the funds and allowing, government to be smart with its money, even the stuff that they have in reserve. But I really like to have data, reports, information. I'm a numbers guy. So I guess without having the reassurance of actual data, actual reports, and a history, I can't make a really good informed decision, and I guess I can't support this bill.
Further discussion to the bill. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drzeskowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members, we heard Representative Nelson talk about the purpose of this bill is to give the Met Council greater ability to invest their cash. Now, Representative Nelson, you did a great job of framing out the issue like Democrats do. They believe the money belongs to them and to government, and it does not. This is the people's money. The people's money that in this particular agency has accumulated to almost $750 million in investments. $700 million, we were told in committee. The question is why? Madam Speaker, would the author yield?
He will yield. Representative Drzeskowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, Representative Nelson, why does the Metropolitan Council need to invest $700 million, nearly nearly 100% of their operating budget, in investments?
Representative Nelson. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, just like the state of Minnesota, they have revenues coming in, and the revenues coming in and the revenues going out don't always match up. So at times you're going to have excess cash coming in, revenues coming in to pay for projects that are ongoing, and at later dates you're going to have the bills for those. And that time in between, similar businesses do the same thing. When they get the revenues in and they have to do the outlay of the expenses, they've got money sitting there that is not being used, but it's set aside for a specific purpose, and they want to be able to invest that and get a little money on it, because if they make a little money on it, they make a little bit of more money on it, they can then take less money from the taxpayers. And Representative Drazkowski, I understand that when it's taxpayer dollars, and in the parlance of that, when it comes to the state, it's the state dollars that we have to spend. Those are all taxpayer dollars, and they always are.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Nelson. Well, what about, Representative Nelson, if those dollars instead stayed in the pockets of taxpayers, and that they invested those dollars and built their business and got our economy going in Minnesota, instead of each of these agencies continuing to accumulate the people's wealth, to convert the understanding to believe that it's their cash, to invest it, $700 million, members, of the people's money sitting in a pile over there at the Metropolitan Council. And we are giving them more investment authority and turning down amendments to provide more oversight and accountability to this agency. Members, this is the wrong direction. We need to know the answers to why they're investing this money, and we don't know. I wonder what the people think about the direction we're going. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Nelson yield for question?
He will. Representative Albright.
Representative Nelson, in the House language, I'm looking at the second page, line 2.29. And I think what you've heard from this side of the aisle, and it should be of concern to most of you on the other side of the aisle, but it looks like we're setting up a bit of a quasi-city unto itself. Because on the line just before it says, as used in this section, governmental entity means a city with a population in excess of 200,000 or a county that contains a city of that size, or the Metropolitan Council. So, can you help me understand why the Metropolitan Council wants to claim citizenship, if you will, as a city or a municipality unto itself, which is really what it infers here? And I'm concerned in terms of if they're expecting us to go along with this language, what's the next step? The Met Council was established as a governance and not even a governance, but as a study for how do we prepare our cities for future growth in a planned way. But it looks like they're taking on the auspices of a city unto themselves by including themselves in this part of the bill. If you would yield, Mr. Speaker.
He will. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Albright, this is just purely a definition that's being put in here. We're not making them a city. We're not making them a county. Like it says, the bill, what this is saying is that the governmental entity, and it's defining what a governmental entity is. And like I said in my opening remarks, it's cities over 200,000 in population, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul currently in the state of Minnesota, or a county. I mean, we're not making that county a city also, or a county that contains that city of that size. And because the Metropolitan Council encompasses both Hennepin County and Ramsey, they're being asked, and this is what the bill is doing, is allowing them to use these same vehicles, these same tools to manage their cash flow. And that's what the bill does. Nothing more. It doesn't create a city, and it doesn't make the Metropolitan Council a city and the powers that this city has.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would the representative continue to yield?
He will. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, on the last page, on line 5.2, and 5.3, you annotate specific counties that are applicable to the section that we just talked about. Do you know the population of Scott County, if you would yield?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Holberg, no, I do not off the top of my head. If they're over 200,000, but they're not a city over 200,000, they're a county.
Representative Albright.
Representative Nelson, just for your clarification, the population of Scott County is 135,000, and we do not have a city over 200,000. So I'm wondering how Scott County would make it under the definitions for inclusion into this bill.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Albrook, as I stated earlier when you asked about that line, the Metropolitan Council includes Hennepin, Ramsey, Anoka, Scott, Dakota, and Carver counties, and if I missed one when I'm reading them off, and Washington County. That's the Metropolitan Council area, and so that's the area the application is to, because that's the application of where the Metropolitan Council covers.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Nelson, I understand the premise on which that you're proposing this. It does afford for the opportunity of investing cash management processes on a better basis. The concerns that you've heard from this side of the aisle really are more far-reaching than just about cash management processes. The premise upon which that we argue against this bill is really about the overreach and the ever-increasing desire for the Met Council to provide authority over local municipalities, county municipalities, and what they're doing in their areas of the state. And it is an intrusion upon their practices by the Met Council, and it seems like it's never ending. So I would urge, contrary to my mistaken earlier, I would urge a red vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 73 ayes and 57 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 2887. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 2887, the first engrossment, an act relating to transportation.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate File 2887 does three things. Number one, previously has the Hornstein bill with regards to changing to life cycle replacement versus initial cost. Second of all, is it replaces a committee with a report and some unsession-y language. And third and finally, it puts natural gas vehicles on the equivalent of other alternative vehicles to allow us the opportunity to capitalize on the fracking revolution that is taking place in North Dakota and other parts across the country. This allows for vehicles that not only save money but are better for the environment. I would encourage a yes vote.
There's no amendments at the desk. Clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 2887.
Third reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 119 ayes and 10 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. We're going to take up the conference report on House File 183.
Conference Committee report. This is the Holberg. Motion, a conference committee report on House File 183, an act relating to data practices. The report's addressed to the Honorable Paul Thiessen, Speaker of the House, the Honorable Sandra L. Pappas, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House File 183, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report signed by all three conferees on the part of the House and all three conferees on the part of the Senate. Holberg moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House File 183 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
Representative Holberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And House File 183 came across your desks actually last year. The Senate then passed their version this year, and we are bringing back the Conference Committee report here late in session. Before I explain the bill, I'd first like to thank my co-conferees, Representative Hillstrom and Hortman. I know data practices isn't everybody's favorite thing, but they served valiantly, and we had some rather contentious hearings that took a while, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for Ms. Lefholtz, who helped with a lot of the support staff, and Matt Gearing in House Research. This bill was brought forward as a result, in large part, to a number of data breaches of public safety databases. And what we tried to accomplish was to add more accountability, more rights by data subjects, and a way to get more information on what's going on with these data breaches. The bill before you takes some small steps towards more accountability. We are making sure that responsible authorities have policies in place to limit access to only those that need the information and how they would share information. We also make them provide reports on data breaches, and actually a new provision that will require notification of individuals whose information will be breached and how they might receive a copy of the report after that is prepared. We require a report of what happened and what type of discipline, if any, occurred, and that report will be final after all employment rights for appeal have been exhausted. We did have the public employee unions in the room and sign off on the language as well. And then finally, we also have a penalty for knowingly accessing unauthorized acquisition of non-public data. And finally, there's a remnant of a recommendation from the Legislative Auditor's report on law enforcement databases that asks for more disclosure around the CYBERS database use, and that's the last section of the bill, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any discussion on the motion to adopt the Conference Committee report? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House File 183, as amended by conference.
Third reading. Any further discussion of the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended by conference and its title agreed to. Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move recess for about an hour or two at the call of the chair.
Representative Purcell moves a recess to the call of the chair. Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Purcell yield for a question?
He will. Representative Purcell. Or Doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Purcell, could you give us a little more specific outlook on what the day might look like? So we're going to recess for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then we'll come back. And do you know what bills we'll take up at that time?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just say we've got a full day in front of us. We're going to try and keep it as brief as we can on our side. We do need to have a caucus, so that's what we're going to do.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Purcell moves a recess to the call of the chair. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails. The House stands in recess to the call of the chair.